Streaming now on Peacock. Paris Hilton and Nicole Richie are back.
That's hot. Loves it.
For a show-stopping reunion that will prove putting on an opera is anything but simple.
We're really good at this.
One thing's for sure, they won't be upstaged.
Good to have you back.
Come on, we've got a show to do.
Paris and Nicole, The Encore, a 3-part reunion special. Streaming now, only on Peacock.
Welcome back to Fine Tooning with Drew Taylor, your one-stop shop when it comes to animation news and commentary. I'm entertainer-writer Jim Hill, and Mr. Taylor, whose writings on the industry you can regularly read over on The Wrap, and whose musings on the Mission Impossible movies you can listen to on Light the Fuse, the official Mission Impossible podcast. Well, he and I are recording this week's episode on Saturday, December 28th. That said, this Fine Tuning, Drew, is supposed to go live on, I think we just mentioned, December 31st, our very last show for 2024. Do you and Katie have anything special planned for New Year's Eve?
No. I think we're going over to a friend's house to hang out for a little bit, and then we'll be back to ring in the new year and make sure the dog isn't too spooked by any fireworks. That's really our main job. Yeah.
That is a gig when you own a K9 in LA. That said, I have to say that Katie is braver than I am, because as we were pre-gaming this week's show, you mentioned that she had just taken her sister down to Anaheim on the Saturday after Christmas to Disneyland. And given the crowds that they will encounter at every step of the way, they might as well have gone to Times Square and on New Year's Eve.
Yeah. There's a reason I'm here talking to you, Jim, and not at Disneyland today. But yeah, I think they're having a good time so far, but yeah, they said that the crowds are insane today.
I think when you go to the park on a day like today, you just have to factor that in. Yeah. That is part of the experience. You then have the bragging rights of you were there at a crazy busy day, and you just have to sort of wrap your head around the notion that, well, you're not getting on anything, but you're there.
Yes.
Now, on the other hand, Nancy and myself, New Year's Eve, we have a kind of tired tradition. We get Chinese takeout earlier in the evening, then we watch ABC as Ryan Seacrest does his Dick Clark impression, and then I talk like the old fart that I am. Like, I continually say things like, I have no idea who the singer is, or I have never heard this song before.
I'm right there with you, Jim. So I think yeah.
Okay, well, there we go.
Yeah.
And then at midnight, Nancy and I toast each other with some sparkling grape juice, brief kiss, we go to bed, and then we get up in time to watch the Tournament of Roses do its live broadcast from the West Coast. And haven't done Times Square on New Year's Eve yet. Did do Macy's 3 different times in New York. Once, actually, in front of the Herald Square store. Macy's was nice enough to get us seats right there on 34th Street. Have you ever done any of the Tournament of Roses stuff?
No, I never have, but I actually, one year, when I was working at Disney, I went and saw them putting together the float that was for Disneyland, I believe. It might have been for the 60th. With the Galaxy's Edge section or float. It was very, very cool. It looked just like the land. And to see all those people putting those roses very intricately placed, it's pretty amazing. It's just in a warehouse in Pasadena, and it's like, holy Lord, this is amazing.
It is. And by the way, I mean, there's all sorts of amazing aspects of Tournament of Roses. I mean, for example, the night before, if you drive up the parade route, it's kind of a family-friendly version of all of the background extras from Mad Max Fury Road. I mean, there are all of these people camped out in chairs by the side of the road, wrapped in blankets because they want to have a good spot, and they're setting. They've got fires set in trash cans. All right, so you've gone down and done the pre-show. Have you ever done Float Fest? The thing they do after? Okay.
No. Tell me about it.
All right. This is actually something you do for 3 days after the parade. It starts on January 1st at 1:30 in the afternoon and then runs through 4 o'clock on January 3rd. But what they do is they park the floats from the parade along there's a stretch between East Sierra Madre Boulevard all the way to East Washington Boulevard. And then, I'm going to caution you folks, it's 2.5 miles of walking, but you get to see these things up close. And as Drew was just mentioning about watching what they do with the roses, I mean, it's you can get right up close to these things and see where they've glued the seeds on or that sort of thing. It is pretty cool. That said, if you're interested in doing this, you will need a ticket to get into Float Fest, and there's $25 a person. And Nancy and I enjoyed doing this back in 2002. Right up until somebody backed into a light pole, which then fell on our rental car.
What?
Yes. And we then spent the next year and a half fighting with Thrifty about, well, you need to deal with this damage. And it's like, I wasn't in the car. So, all right. Anyway, when I'm down in Florida, I typically get a rental car. And you know what else I do? I go to theme parks. And which makes me think I need to mention the sponsor of this podcast, which is, of course, touringplans.com. And if you're headed down to Central Florida anytime soon, Touring Plans can help you save time. More importantly, can help you save money as you wander around Walt Disney World or the Universal Orlando Resort. So please check them out at touringplans.com. Okay, now to the news. And I wanted to follow up on something that Drew and I had said on last week's show. When we commented how Sonic 3 had bested Mufasa, the Lion King, at the domestic box office. And I believe it was you, Drew, who cautioned us to not get premature here because it came to writing off this Barry Jenkins movie. And that was largely because of what happened with Elemental back in 2023. Was that right? Summer of 2023?
Yes, summer 2023. Yeah.
Well, again, turns out Drew was correct. In its second weekend in domestic release, this Lion King prequel did come roaring back. Now, mind you, as Drew and I are recording this week's Fine Tuning, which, again, early in the evening of Saturday, December 28th, East Coast time, we've only got the projected box office numbers for the 5-day-long Christmas weekend, December 25th through the 29th. And those projections suggest that Mufasa will sell 61.7 million worth of tickets in North America, while Sonic will have to settle for 59.4 million in that same territory. That said, I don't know if we're going to see a duplication of the what happened with Elemental, because again, that was released during the summer and the kids were out of school for weeks at a time, whereas everyone heads back to school this time next week, right?
Yeah, I mean, again, they're saying that the international box office really has to come through. Mm-hmm. Even at the end of this weekend, the total is only going to be 88 million, so it's not like it's this huge phenomenon yet. But you know, like we said last week, it could be like Wonka, where it just kind of sticks around. And it's something that families know that they can take their kids to see, especially, you know, if they've already seen Sonic 3. So, you know, it's a great alternative. So, yeah, I'm very interested to see how this is going to play out, especially with this 5-day versus 3-day situation that we're seeing this weekend.
Okay. And, of course, Elemental was released in theaters by Pixar. And speaking of Pixar, Tim Allen, who's been doing all sorts of press lately for Shifting Gears. That's his new sitcom. He'll be doing for ABC with Kate Denning. That debuts on that broadcast network on January 8th. He just mentioned that he spent 5 hours in a recording booth recording Buzz Lightyear's dialogue for Toy Story 5. Did you see this interview in Collider?
No, I didn't. I saw what he was all over the Christmas Day parade, wishing everyone a happy Christmas from the folks at Switching Gears, but I did not see that. No.
And it's so interesting you point that out, because the evening beforehand, they actually, ABC ran as the Disney movie, the Santa Claus, and same thing. It was introduced by Tim Allen and Kate Denning. And again, pushing the fact that Shifting Gears is going to be debuting on ABC in January of next year. So they aren't missing a trick. But anyway, back to what Mr. Allen shared with Collider. He said, I don't know what I'm supposed to say other than it's a really clever story. And talking about getting back in the booth after, the last one was 2017. Was that right?
No, 2019.
Okay.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah.
Okay. He talked about it was a struggle at first. It took about 2 hours behind the mic to finally get back to doing Buzz properly. And we recorded everything up to the third act. That said, we will probably go back and re-record all of this stuff 5 times because that's what Pixar does. It's a really good story, though. So, and since we were just talking about Kat Dennings, want to say that I really enjoyed her vocal work on season 3 of Marvel Animation's What If. And in fact, I think you mentioned when you were talking up this show for Disney Plus that the What If Howard the Duck Got Hitched was a particularly good episode. And I agree. And Kat voiced Darcy. That's the character, a live action character that she played in the Thor movies. And of course, I always enjoy what Seth Green does with Howard. I managed to watch 7 of the 8 episodes for this season. And when we get done here tonight, I'll go check out the 8th, but they have been running them back to back since the 22nd.
Yeah, it's like a week-long thing.
Yeah.
I think it's been fun to watch it once a day. I like the Western one. I thought was particularly fun with Shang-Chi and Kate Bishop, aka Hawkeye. I thought that was very fun. Yeah,
there we go. Okay. So now back to Pixar for a moment. The win or lose situation continues. And it was especially disappointing, Drew, to learn that this limited series from Pixar for Disney Plus has largely been completed and in the can and ready to run on that streaming service for 2 years now. Is that what you'd heard as well? Or
I mean, yeah, it's been done for a little while, although I know that this was an area of discussion, obviously, and that some of the delays have been because they were trying to figure out what to do with this particular storyline. And yeah.
Yeah, and speaking of which, again, supposedly one of the reasons why this has been something that Disney's been trying to resolve for the past 2 years is because of the whole "Don't Say Gay" thing that when Disney was battling with Ron DeSantis, and which led to Bob Iger being reinstated as Disney CEO in November of 2022. And evidently, the decision was made that they didn't want to give conservatives any more ammo when it came to going after the mouse. So Win or Lose was effectively parked at that point. And in an interview with The Hollywood Reporter, Sarah Ligtig, who is a former Pixar assistant editor who worked as a consultant on this specific episode, the trans episode for Win or Lose, was quoted as saying, "For a long time, Disney has not been in the business of making great content. They have been in the business of making great profits." Even as far back as 2 years ago when I was at Pixar, we had a meeting with then CEO Bob Chapek, and they were clear with us that they see animation as a conservative medium. And I think, Drew, when you and I were pre-gaming, you also talked about how now this appears to be impacting Hopper, which is Pixar's 30th full-length animated film, and that doesn't arrive in theaters till March of 2026. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, let's talk about it. You know, Jim, I'm a big Hopper head. It was the movie that I was most excited about out of D23, even though I had already known about it for a little while. And yeah, apparently the themes of environmentalism are being toned down because they are worried about offending people. What is so funny about this, obviously, is the fact that WALL-E, which is arguably the best movie that Pixar has ever done, has very heavy environmentalism themes. And so that's very very dumb and very sad, but that seems to be where we're at now. So I don't know.
And I don't know. Drew is not wrong here, and especially on the heels of something like Wall-E, which again, wonderful film. Everybody agrees, but this whole notion of we need to sort of dial back Disney's corporate agenda, like there's a corporate agenda, and the notion of whatever messages they're about to force on America's children. And I have to say, Drew, I'm going to be fascinated to see what these very same parents have to say about the animated version of George Orwell's Animal Farm, which Andy Serkis has directed, and that's supposed to arrive in theaters next year, right? 2025?
Yeah. One of the very many animated features that are coming out next year.
Okay. So speaking of which, folks, when we get back from this break, we will talk about a number of those films as well as some news stories from the end of 2004 we didn't get to yet. But first, this. And we're back. Okay, so earlier in today's show, we talked about your TV viewing options on New Year's Eve. Again, you can watch Ryan Seacrest pretend to be Dick Clark, but there is, that said, another option, one that just became available this past Friday, December 27th, and that's you can now digitally stream Lord of the Rings. I'm going to try to do it.
I'm going to jump in, Jim. Here we go.
Lord
of the Rings. The War of the Rohirrim.
Thank you. Okay. Now, mind you, Peter Jackson is the talented gentleman behind this anime prequel to his Lord of the Rings live action trilogy. And just so you understand, folks, you can rent this Warner Brothers Discovery release from a premium video on demand service for $19.95. That gets you access to the material for 48 hours. Or you can purchase a digital version of War of the
Rohirrim.
Again, Maynard High School education. I don't know what to tell you, but that you can get that for $24.99. Now, that'd be a different way to ring in the new year. You could actually find a scene where one of those massive war elephants gets taken down by Hera, and then maybe cue that footage up so that when the ball drops in Times Square, instead of watching the ball, you can watch this giant war elephant crash to the ground. Which again, I know, weird idea, but I have to tell you that when Nancy and I would spend New Year's Eve down in Carnesville, Georgia, with her family, back in the 2000s, Nancy's dad had this tradition where he'd actually queue up his old VHS copy of the 1933 version of King Kong. And so at the moment where the ball dropped in Times Square, he'd then hit the control, and effectively it was Kong falling off of the Empire State Building. So as he hit the ground, Happy New Year. And all right, strange. I get it.
I don't know if you know this, Jim, but it was Beauty that killed the Beast on that one.
Go. Now, speaking of beasts, Creature Commandos, we have season 1 going on right now on Max. So I always am a little cautious at moments like this because Drew has corrected me so many times when it comes to this. So this show has just been renewed for a second season. Now, is this an actual renewal, or had they always planned on doing 20
I don't know.
episodes?
I mean, when you see the final episode, which I think airs on the 9th,
okay.
I mean, it sets up a second season so flawlessly that I would be surprised if these episodes had not been worked on for a little while already, Jim, which is why they announced that there is a second season coming.
Okay.
But I don't know, have you watched any of it yet? It's a really terrific show.
I mean, I've been trying, I first have to finish getting caught up with season 3 of What If, but it's the very next thing on the list. So especially now with season 2 having been greenlit. So anyway, getting back to New Year's Eve, which of course is a time when we look forward to the coming year, 2025. And kind of interesting that our first full-length animated feature stateside is going to be Wallace and Gromit Vengeance Most Fowl. That has already debuted on the BBC on Christmas Day, and this Aardman production It seems to have gotten stellar reviews across the board. And you've seen it, right, Drew?
Oh yeah, I loved it.
Mm.
I'm very excited for everybody to finally be able to watch it on January 3rd on Netflix.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a couple days into the new year, and you
Okay.
get Wallace and Gromit. I mean, that's pretty good. I mean, that's starting the year off right.
I agree. Okay, so let's walk through what we have so far. And I have to apologize because when we get to the end of this list, we have a bunch of projects that are to be determined, have been announced but don't have locked in dates here. So, January 24th, we have from G Kids, The Colors Within. So I'm assuming this is yet another of their Japanese anime acquisitions.
Yeah, it's really wonderful. It's a story about some high school kids that form a rock band, and it is really great. I saw this at Animationist Film this year, and it was one of the highlights. So definitely make plans to see that one. It's actually done by the animation is done by Science Saru, who did the Scott Pilgrim anime. As well as Dan Da Dan, which is on Netflix now and just got renewed like Creature Commandos for a second season. So really stellar animation, just a lovely story. I think you'll enjoy it, Jim.
Okay. And if we jump ahead just a week after that, we get Dog Man from DreamWorks Animation. Kind of interesting. I used some of my Christmas money to actually order the art for this, which became available on December 10th. But is it arriving till late in the month? Should we read anything into that, or?
I think they're very bullish about this one. I mean, from what I understand, the character comes from a comic book within the not Diary of a Wimpy Kid, Captain Underpants universe.
There we go.
Right? So it's a spinoff. I believe Jellyfish provided the animation, and it was developed at DreamWorks. So, I'm really excited. It looks like it has a great look to it and great voice cast. It just looks like a ton of fun, and I've heard very good things out of DreamWorks about it. So, looking forward to it.
Okay, and speaking of things, you've talked about this project since you saw it in Annecy last summer, but February 29th, Leap Year Day. We get The Day the Earth Blew Up, a Looney Tunes movie, which
finally.
And I was kind of intrigued. The filmmaker was out doing interviews and was talking about one of the inspirations for what they tried to do here was actually the Goofy movie, that taking what had previously basically been a supporting character and putting them front and center. Did you get that when you saw it?
Yeah, I mean, it is a straight up Daffy Porky kind of like buddy movie. So I think that people are going to be really excited to see it. I hope they are. It's just a delight. So go see it, please.
Now, jumping ahead a few months now, June 13th, 2025, we have Elio from Pixar, which didn't that piece in the Hollywood Reporter also sort of allude to the fact that maybe Elio got dialed back a little bit?
Yeah. I mean, the official word is sort of that the movie was originally directed by Adrian Molina from Coco, who is a gay man and whose experiences were reflected in Elio. And now that he is not directing it anymore, that two straight women are directing it, that the perspective has changed, which is a way of them, I'm sure, saying that we tried to make it less gay, and I'm sure that they are successful on that. But as we saw when they tried to do that for Inside Out 2, it didn't really work. So hopefully it doesn't work on Elio either.
Okay. So, but again, that's June 13th of next year. Then July 18th, we get the Smurfs movie from Paramount, which I'm intrigued that didn't we get 3 or 4 Smurfs projects from Sony? This is now at Paramount?
Yeah. The license has gone to Paramount. It's a fully animated movie. At least one of those Smurfs movies was, or maybe 2 of them were sort of CG live action hybrid, right? So this is going to be fully animated. I don't know who the vendor studio is, But yeah, this one, it has musical direction and new songs by Rihanna, who also is going to be a voice in it. But that's about all that we know. I mean, they've been trotting this out at CinemaCon for the last couple of years, but yeah, still not a lot of details on that one yet.
Okay. Well, I guess we'll know more in April or May when all the exhibitors are in Vegas. So,
Yeah.
Okay, jumping ahead to August 1st of this year, we get The Bad Guys 2. And I so enjoyed the first film in the series here. Likewise, the holiday specials that Kev helped keep this front of mind. And I think we were talking earlier that it was a strong trailer. So looks like a good continuation of the project.
Yeah, I can't wait. I think this is going to be even better than the first one. And yeah, it's a fun little franchise. I agree with you, Jim. I think that this is a strong little franchise for DreamWorks.
Now, it's so interesting you use the word franchise because the next project coming up, September 26th, 2025, again from DreamWorks, is Gabby's Dollhouse, the movie. And there is, of course, the Gabby television series. But what's been kind of interesting is to watch where Gabby has been showing up prior to this film. I mean, for example, there's a Gabby meet and greet in the DreamWorks land that opened at Universal Studios Florida back in June of last year. And the new Universal Kids Park that they're building in Texas will have an entire Gabby's Dollhouse land. So this is something that the company definitely believes in. And I guess given that I've been hearing about a really strong retail program to support this fall 2025 release, kind of reminds me the Spirit movie they did.
That's absolutely the model. Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah. So it again, we'll have a vendor studio. It was not animated at DreamWorks, and yeah, it'll be for a cheaper price point. But yeah, I mean, isn't she on a cruise ship or something too?
I want to say
okay.
yes.
So yes, she's everywhere. So yeah, this is a big priority for DreamWorks.
Okay. And speaking of big priorities, November 25th of 2025, we get Zootopia 2, which big franchise for Disney. We've already seen the land open at Shanghai Disneyland. We have the redo of the Tree of Life show that's supposedly being prepped for Florida. And we've seen some bits and pieces from this one, and we actually get to see the reptile world for the first time, right?
Yes, yeah, that's the big draw. Yeah, the scene that they showed at D23 was in a kind of swamp area with some walruses and things that was very, very funny. But yeah, that's the big thing, is that there is a reptile component, and the missing person is a missing snake voiced by Ke Huy Quan from recent Oscar winner from Everything Everywhere All at Once, who was just in Kung Fu Panda 4, among other things. So yeah, I think it's going to be awesome. With Jared Bush and Byron Howard back, should be a lot of fun.
I agree. And then finally, the one other film we know has a locked-in release date, December 19th, 2025. We have the SpongeBob movie, Search for SquarePants. And we're about to get into our to-be-determined films, because we actually have two SpongeBob products coming out next year. We have a Plankton, the movie, right? But that's going straight to Netflix.
Yeah, that's like the Sandy Cheeks movie that came out this year. It'll be straight to Netflix. Yeah, it's pretty interesting that they'll have a theatrical and a streaming title next year. But SpongeBob is the franchise that will not die. So God bless him.
Now, we talked about at the top of the segment Andy Serkis's version of George Orwell's Animal Farm, and of course, Serkis is the master performance capture work. So
but this one actually is not performance capture. It is
really,
yeah, it is what traditional animation Cinesite from Canada is doing the animation, and it is. I think he planned it as mocap initially, but it'll be
because wasn't this supposed to be a follow up to his version of the Jungle Book? And
yes, absolutely. Yeah,
Wow.
I only know this because I talked to him last year maybe for Andor, and I brought it up, and he said no, it's not performance capture anymore. So there you
Wow.
go.
Okay, that's interesting. Okay, we were talking about Netflix, and they, of course, have another project, animated project. We have In Your Dreams. Do we have any info on that one? Or
Yeah, I mean, I've heard from several people that this is like their big movie for next year.
Mhm,
They showed a little bit of it at an animation showcase pre-Annecy last year, and it absolutely
mhm.
brought the house down. So it does not surprise me
Wow.
that it will be the big hit of this year.
Mhm.
But yeah, I've heard it's wonderful.
Okay, okay. And again from Netflix, but this time around from Sony Pictures Animation, we have K-pop Demon Hunters, which I'm already on board with because of that title.
I know. I don't get too attached to that title though, Jim. I hear they're looking for a new title,
ah
but I
dang.
know, I know.
Okay.
But I've heard it's really cool, very stylized. Um, it was very funny. Last year, I was at Sony to watch something, and I went to the wrong screening room, and they said,
Mhm,
"Oh no, we're showing K-pop Demon Hunters in here." And I thought, maybe I should just
mhm.
stay put to watch K-pop Demon Hunters. See who notices. But of course, I had to watch whatever it was that I was there to watch. But yeah,
Mm,
I hear this one is really awesome, and I cannot wait.
okay. And then finally, on the heels of uh Luck and then Spellbound, we have our next film from Skydance for Netflix. We have Puku. You got anything on that?
Well, I mean, this is Nathan Greno's
Hmm.
new movie, formerly of Walt Disney Animation Studios.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and
Mr. Tangled. Yes. Okay.
Mr.
All right.
Tangled, yes, Mr.
Mm-hmm.
Gigantic.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it looks really cute. I've seen like literally 30 seconds from it, but the little
Hmm.
character that Puku is this little fuzzy character.
Hmm.
Looks adorable. I got to talk to him for a few minutes at this animation showcase thing, and he's thrilled. Everybody's thrilled. I can't wait. I mean, to hear an audience full of people collectively awe, at once. It's like they showed a picture of Jim Hill up there. That was the kind of response.
I think you're mistaking awe for nausea. But all right.
Okay,
Anyway,
okay.
let's see. Beyond that, we have talked on previous fine tunings about the Simpsons movie 2, which is supposedly in development at Gracie and 20th Century Animation. Very unlikely we'll see it next year or the year after that. Wanted though to take this opportunity to talk about. Well, Drew, you were the one who brought up these new Simpsons episodes that are being created exclusively for Disney Plus. For example, we just got the two-parter "Oh Come On, All Ye Faithful," which, by the way, are technically the 10th and 11th episode for season 36 of The Simpsons, and that became available for viewing on that streaming service on December 17th. And then on over on Fox on the night of December 22nd, we got The Man Who Flew Too Much. And that, depending on how you count things, is the 12th episode. So for season 36. So, and look, I know that this time of year, some of the very best Christmas stories are the ones that skillfully mix happy times and sad times. But I did you get to see either of these two?
I saw the double episode on Disney Plus, and I really enjoyed it a lot.
Mhm.
I thought it was really really great.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. I gotta say that one got a kind of bleak for me. I mean, and the fact that this two-parter actually really kind of leaned into referencing the June 2023 implosion of the Titan, that's submersible from the Ocean Gate expeditions that took those tourists down to the wreck of the Titanic. And also, The Man Who Flew Too Much. Drew, it directly references. Do you remember that story from October of '72 where a plane goes down in the Andes, and in order to survive, the passengers and crew actually have to resort to cannibalism? And
Of course.
look, I'm not gonna be the guy who tells Matt Groening how to do his job. And more to the point, the animation on The Simpsons these days is just stellar. The show has never looked better. But I got to say, these were interesting episodes to put out there just around the holiday, and especially when, oh come on, all ye faithful, flat out states that Homer's mother Mona wound up in hell. And I love that Glenn Close actually came back to record that dialogue. So, oh, by the way, Glenn Close first appeared on The Simpsons as the voice of Homer's mother back in November of 1995. That's season 6 of The Simpsons. Just 6 months later, Tom Cruise debuted as Ethan Hunt in the Mission Impossible film series, with the first installment of that movie franchise arriving at theaters in May of 1996. And of course, this spring, 29 years later, on May 23rd, 2025, we will get Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning. And by the way, if you're interested in the Mission Impossible films at all, you really need to check out Light the Fuse, which is a wonderful podcast that Drew does with his equally talented co-host Charles Hood. And if only for the fact that the people that Drew and Charles sit down with, they don't just talk about the Mission Impossible movies. They talk about their entire careers, and you get so many amazing behind-the-scenes stories about so many of your favorite films. I mean, it's almost a master class in modern-day cinema. So do check that out. And your most recent episode was actually sort of a deep dive on the teaser trailer for Final Reckoning, and you were mentioning starting in January, you're getting new episodes out the gate. Is that correct? Or?
That's right. We will be back 2025. More Light the Fuse, whether you like it or not.
Cool.
Probably not, but it's still coming. So deal with it.
Now, speaking of things that are coming, and like it or not, we have some other podcasts we do here at Jim Hill Media. We, of course, have Disney Dish that I do with Len Testa. Likewise, we have the Epic Universal podcast, which I do with Eric Hersey, who's the talented gentleman who produces a lot of the shows here. We also have the merch show I do with Eric's bride, Lauren Hersey, and that's called I Want That Too. We also have the Looking at Lucasfilm podcast, and that I do with Brian Gahn, and he and I will be doing a new episode next week as soon as the 6th and final episode of Skeleton Crew drops. Going to be interested to see how that plays out. And in addition to that, we, of course, have the podcast that we're promoting here in association with Noah and Shelley Valladolid. That's their Manufacturing the Magic, and that looks back at the history of themed entertainment. And speaking of deep dives when it comes to themed entertainment, we, of course, have our project for Patreon, Disney Unpacked. That's the video show that Len and I do with Jim Schul, veteran Imagineer, and we have been on a glide path to get to talk about the extraterrestrial alien encounter at Stitch's Great Escape. But we have one more podcast to set that up, and that does an in-depth look at the Great Movie Ride. And then, let's see, finally, want to also, again, we mentioned Eric Hersey, but I also want to mention David Gray, who edits the shows here, does a great job. And by the way, folks, if you could do Drew and I a favor, if you get over to Apple Podcasts and rate and review, well, not just this show, but Light the Fuse, that would be helpful. Okay, social media wise, so we are officially over at Blue Sky now. Guess no?
Not yet. Maybe in 2025 I'll finally get my carcass over there. Still on Twitter and Instagram, mostly as Drew Tailored, like a tailored shirt. So feel free to follow me there. And what about you, Jim?
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram as Jim Hill Media, and over on Facebook is Jim Hill Media News. And one final note before we head out the door here, folks, just want to remind you that Drew has 2 books that are about to hit store shelves. He has The Art and Making of Ultraman Rising. I want to say that's the tail end of January. Is that correct, when it's coming out?
Yes.
Okay.
I've got my copies, Jim. It exists.
Cool,
It
cool.
exists in the world, yes.
Okay. And we then have The Art of Disney's Amphibia. That's from the Disney manga imprint. You did that with Matt Braley, and that comes out in March of next year. Is that correct? Okay.
Correct.
Cool.
And both are beautiful, beautiful books. So, not because of me, because of the amazing artwork, but still, check it
Still
out.
worth checking out. And again, you
Yeah.
got gift cards, folks. Now you know what to spend them on. Okay.
That's
Anyway.
right.
On behalf of Mr. Taylor, thank you for listening to this week's Fine Tuning, and he and I will be back soon.